Welcome back for the first time in 2025 to In My Feelings, a safe space to talk all things NBA. I'm joined today by a very special host. You know him from the Mismatch, from the Chris Vernon show, and the halftime show if you're watching the Memphis Grizzlies, y'all. My man, Chris Vernon, what's good, brother?
Heyo, the first episode of 2025. I'm so honored.
Yes. Unfortunately, we had to miss last week because of the fires that are still raging in LA. Obviously, thoughts going out to the people that have been displaced, our friends, our colleagues, thinking about them. But yeah, man, happy to be on with you, Verno, for this first show. And right off the top, I'm going to hit you with a fact or feelings. Fact or feelings, the Memphis Grizzlies have an NBA Finals run in them this season.
Feelings.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that's feelings.
Wow. Why do you say that, Verno?
I mean, they've got to, look, they have to prove themselves against the best teams. So far this year, as we are recording this, they beat the San Antonio Spurs on Wednesday night. That moved them to 13-12 against the Western Conference. You were to break down their schedule thus far, they are 11 games over 500. They're 13-3 against the East. They have laid waste to the Eastern Conference. Now, unfortunately, they do not get to play the Eastern Conference in the playoffs. So they have to prove themselves. And honestly, a lot of proving themselves is when they get, hopefully, at some point soon, a full roster. They have done what they have done thus far. I think the big picture is you've got to be thrilled with where they are in third in the West, while John Morant missed 17 games, while Desmond Bane missed 9 games, while Marcus Smart has missed the majority of the season, while Gigi Jackson has missed the entire season, while Vince Williams has missed the entire season. And so they've got 3 guys that are like real rotation guys that have missed virtually the whole year. They've had stars miss time, and they're still in the position they're in. So that's a big picture. But the last 41 games, you're going to have to prove your worth against the best teams in the Western Conference in order for us to change that from feelings to fact.
So the reason why I asked you, and people might accuse me of being a prisoner of the moment here, is because I watched that entire Spurs game on Wednesday night. And what struck me was a couple of things. One, and I don't know if you read Zach Cram's article about like how singular the Memphis Grizzlies offense is. Like they don't run pick and rolls. They just drive and kick the shit out of every single person they play. They have this wholly unique style. Draymond Green is like confused by it. And he's like, bro, I've memorized every single offense in the NBA. I have no idea what these guys are doing out there. And as I'm watching the game, San Antonio was just kind of getting to the basket with reckless abandon. And I was like, man, that's a big problem. And then it dawned on me that the aforementioned Gigi Jackson and Vince Williams have not played a single game this season. That, you know, as you mentioned, all the games that their key contributors, specifically Ja Morant, has missed this season. And these new guys, right? The Huffs, the Santi Aldamas, like these people that weren't counted on to be contributors. Even Zach Edey, I think, has something to give in meaningful games down the stretch. I'm just like, dude, I look up and down this roster and I just see legitimate NBA rotational players. I'm talking about playoff rotational players. And I just think they have a way to be multiple that I think is most important come postseason. Like, you got to be able to match up with not just Jokic and them, but you got to match up with OKC when that comes. You got to match up with Luka Doncic and them when that comes. And I think the Grizzlies, man, like, I'm starting to really believe they're a sleeping giant out west. And that's why I wanted to get your opinion on that.
Well, and they only have, thus far this year, I mean, going into last weekend, Morant, Bane, and Jackson, they're 3 biggest stars and their 3 leading scorers, had only played 199 minutes together.
Wow.
Okay. And I get it that like something like with the Knicks is extreme, But, of course, the Knicks have the most played three-man lineup.
Yeah, it's insane.
But it's over 1,000 minutes.
That's crazy.
1,000 minutes, right? And so you had less than, going into the weekend, you had less than 200 that you had your three best players on the floor together. And I do think that there's a trade to be had. They have that, you talk about having all those guys. In the end, they have still been searching, and they searched for this even when they had Dylan Brooks. They have still been searching for that fourth guy. And so that's why you heard them in the OG Anunoby sweepstakes, and that's why you heard them in the Mikal Bridges sweepstakes, and that's why they thought they had Dorian Finney-Smith all locked up. And most recently, you heard them in the Jimmy Butler ones, which I've got to believe that there were probably some conversations that took place. I don't know, but I can't imagine Jimmy Butler goes out of his way with his representation to leak to Chris Haynes, hey, don't trade me to the Memphis Grizzlies, unless, of course, you had gotten a call saying, hey, there's a deal here that might be feasible. And so I think there is probably a consolidation of that. The depth is great, and what it can do is make you a great regular season team. But you are still going to have either these guys like Marcus Smart and Vince Williams not only be available but really good. You're going to have some elite wing defense when it comes to playoff time. Everybody ends up having that because Jalen Wells has been an absolute revelation. In the end, he was the 39th pick in the draft.
Yeah, no, he's not your answer.
It's not going to be, you can't have your defensive assignment against Anthony Edwards or Devin Booker or Kevin Durant or go up and down the Western Conference. That can't be that. And so either you get those guys back healthy and they prove to be a perfect missing piece, or you have to outsource that, which I think is actually reasonably likely. You have gotten to this point. You have expiring contracts. You have draft picks at your disposal, and you have good young talent that another team would want. And so they're very well. I would imagine that they will be rather aggressive over the course of the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the Jimmy thing is interesting because that one interests me the most because I think that makes them the favorite. They get Jimmy Butler. They're the favorite in my mind to come out of the West. Shit, they might be the favorite to win the championship, even over a Celtics team that I think is, these guys are world beaters, to be honest. And I'm interested in why you wouldn't just call this guy's bluff and be like, look, Jimmy, we'll offer you money. We'll give you your extension. You'll play on a championship team. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't call that guy's bluff. And maybe it's like one of those things where it's like, who wants to actually put our chips on the table for a guy who's known to be pretty ornery? I can come up with the excuses as to why not, but I just think you got to have balls in the NBA to win. And I think like what the type of team they built in Boston was balls. Like going out, making sure, let's bring Al Horford back. Let's do the Porzingis thing. Let's get Drew Holiday. Let's get there. Like they just were like, fuck that. These great players are available. Let's bring them in. Salary cap, all that other stuff. We're worried about that future consideration when it comes to us. They had balls, man. And I think you're going to have balls.
And I think you probably feel the same way in that, last year, the Eastern and Western Conference Finals representatives were altered by what took place at the trade deadline. Yes. And it wasn't the big names that moved, but I guess you could say Siakam's name was a big name. But, I mean, The Pacers were there, and they're not there if they wouldn't have gotten Pascal Siakam. And obviously we know on the other side, Dallas was able to
completely transformed their team.
Right. The Gafford deal that helped them as well as moving off of Grant Williams and bringing in P.J. Washington. And so you had those things alter who made it. I think that is absolutely going to be the case this year as well. And that's why when I say Memphis is going to be aggressive, I think because what you're going to see is other teams potentially be aggressive as well. I think you look up and down the Western Conference and you say, okay, Oklahoma City's here. And if I gave you, I'll just ask you, if I gave you $100, right? right now, and I say, okay, Oklahoma City's one of the representatives. We'll say they have proven themselves up the halfway point of the season. Hopefully Hartenstein's going to be fine. Chet comes back. Let's just say everybody's healthy on these teams, okay? They're as currently constructed. If I give you $100 and said, Waz, put that down on any other team you want to be in the Western Conference Finals.
It's
hard.
not. It's probably at this point not Memphis.
It's probably Dallas.
Yeah, it's probably Dallas. It's just based off of what they did last year. Luka hasn't played. But
think look at where they're going to be in the standings by the time they get their guys back. And who knows? Luka has never been the beacon of health. And
he's not an Iron Man.
And you're getting this guy on a scooter for a long time, right? You're asking a lot for this guy to be able to. Yeah. So there's going to be a ramp-up time whenever he does get back in the lineup. They've done a reasonable job holding down the fort, but you don't know where they're going to be. Like, you could draw them as a 1, 2, or 3 seed if they fall down the standings. But the point is, outside of Oklahoma City, I think from 2 down, every single one of their teams looked at themselves and say, we're not good enough. Dallas is the only one that could trick themselves into going, we're just unhealthy, but we are good enough. But they may not have the perimeter defense in order to do it, right? Because they've lost Derrick Jones Jr., who was very important in terms of getting stops.
Yeah, he was their number one stopper.
Right. And so I think that most every team past Oklahoma City, Memphis included, looks at themselves and go, it is available, but we need to be better than we are right now.
So the way you're talking, I could tell you would like to see something that's more than on them, because Finney Smith is a marginal move, in my opinion, for Memphis. I'm like, why is Finney Smith offering you more than G.G. Jackson and Vince Williams? I don't feel like he does. So, and even a Cam Johnson, is that a big enough sort of move, or do you think they should be aiming higher than even a Cam Johnson type?
I mean, I don't know. I don't. The asking price for Cam Johnson seems very high.
Which is crazy to me, because he's not like that. He's not that kind of guy.
I mean, look, I think one of the things that you learn, and this is why it has sucked for Vince Williams and G.G. Jackson to be out. One of the things we're learning as the Brooklyn guys move on is that it's not as easy as it is in Brooklyn, because you're getting to 115. And so Dennis Schroeder, I watched him be unbelievable at the beginning of the season.
I thought that was a great pickup for the Warriors.
Can't catch a flow. Not yet, at least.
He just can't. I think he can't. I think he will, but it hasn't happened automatically. So if you see that deal, you're right. Why should you be like, let's get a Brooklyn guy in here?
All I'm saying is it's a totally different deal to be able to put up numbers and stats in totally meaningless games. And every game that Brooklyn played this year was meaningless. Okay? Everybody
100%.
Knew the situation.
Pure pride. That was it.
And that is actually the truth of what took place when we saw G.G. Jackson and Vince Williams become what they became. And that's what sucked about not getting to see them within the winning context. And we have seen Smart, obviously, in winning context, so you know what he can bring to the table when he is available. But he keeps on breaking fingers. I don't understand it. Marcus Smart has played no games for the Memphis in 2 years.
It's kind of crazy.
And it's always because he breaks a finger. It's not even it's just the weirdest injuries. So I do think on the Cam Johnson front, I mean, it sounds like the asking price is high, but I do think that there has been one of those 3-and-D guys out there, a guy that can reliably defend the position and then knock down corner threes that is very well maybe out there still. You know what I mean? And you never know. I mean, you look up and down through all of these rosters, right? And names come up every year, like Cam Johnson's name, like Dorian Finney-Smith's name, Jeremy Grant's name comes up every year, right? As a guy that maybe he could.
God, I would love to see Jeremy Grant over there.
Right. Yeah, right. And maybe he could end up being back in a role. But I'm just saying there's always guys that are available. And I do think that when you're having to go up against the Oklahoma Cities of the world and you're having to go up against many of your peers in the Western Conference, you know very well. They have gotten this far, and they have been the third-ranked team in the Western Conference thus far, starting 2 rookies. You know as well as I do. You cannot start 2 rookies when it comes playoff time.
With an excellent point differential that would suggest that they're even better than their record would indicate. Like, I'm just really high on them. And I want to get you out of here because, like, the main reason for me, man, is that I am fully back on board the Ja Morant train. I just think the guy, I think he has a gear, which a lot of, like, I truly think he's not even pushing it right now. I think Ja has a gear and a level that a lot of guys can't get to. And I think most importantly for me, when it comes to these guys, is he has something to prove. And I just love that combination of this incredibly talented, deep roster who still has bullets in the chamber, so to speak, to get more guys, more talent in line, young, hungry, and Ja Morant, guy with a chip, who's already always had a chip on his shoulder, but even now more so. So, like, that's why I'm really, really starting to get excited about the Grizzlies.
And then you're going to see, when it comes playoff time, Morant's going to be out there 35 to 40 minutes every night, right? Your minute totals are going to be more like 38 instead of 28.
Yep.
He plays 28 minutes a night.
It's
like, to your point.
Insane.
To your point, he does not, like, he's not, like, the whole idea is to be able to be healthy because he has not been able to stay healthy through an entire playoffs yet, right?
Yep.
They lost him in the Golden State series, the forgotten series by literally everyone that enabled the Warriors to be able to win a title. And then they lost him in the Lakers series, a few years ago. And so he hasn't been able to stay healthy through an entire playoff run, but that's obviously the goal going into this, and there's no question, whether he is or not, he will always believe he is the best player on the floor. And he will conduct himself as such. I mean, we've seen him have damn near 50 points in playoff games already.
Yeah.
It's just been a while. It's been a while since people have seen it. Right.
I just truly believe Ja Morant is a guy. It wasn't that long ago where this guy was top 5 MVP candidate caliber of player. I think he's even better than he was back then. His mind for the game, like the thing that just doesn't get talked about enough is this guy's playmaking, creation for others is up there with everybody in the freaking league. Obviously, maybe not a Jokic, whatever. He's not 7 feet tall, but like for the freaking normal size NBA player, this dude, his setup ability is crazy. Obviously, going to the basket, he has no peers, and the jump shot is coming along. I'm just really, 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 really excited about the potential for what the Grizzlies can do going forward, man.
Where are you at on the Wemby dunk? Does it matter that the whistle blew?
Yes. No, doesn't matter.
They both jumped.
Yes, Wemby knew what the hell was about to happen, and there was nothing he could do about it. Are you crazy? Dude, I had the freaking screen door in my apartment open, man, and I screamed, and I know I scared a bunch of my neighbors watching that shit on Wednesday night, man. That was just crazy, man.
Hey, go watch it back, and watch when he runs up in the crowd, he's holding his nuts. He is.
Hey, we're going to put that in post. Don't worry. That'll be in the vid. Hey, man, Verno, really appreciate you coming on. Of course, you guys can check him out on the Mismatch and the Chris Vernon Show. Appreciate you as always, bro.
My man. Thanks, Woz.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was our show for today. Make sure you subscribe to the Ringer NBA's YouTube page. Make sure you're hitting that notification bell so that you get notified every single time In My Feelings drops. And make sure you are liking this vid because it really helps us with the algorithm. We will see you next time. Peace.